There's an old quote that I think sums up the core theme of Jake the Brick nicely. If you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential. This quote is the perfect place to start because Jake starts the episode doing a lot less than normal. The basic premise of this episode is that Jake shapeshifts into the shape of a brick and slots himself into the wall of a crumbling shack.
It is strange.
At the story's beginning, Finn asks Jake how his experiment is going. Jake seems happy enough, but Finn is confused by the whole affair. Jake explains that ever since I was little, I wanted to see what it's like being a brick in a brick shack when the brick shack falls down. But the moment Finn leaves, Jake gets bored. To give himself something to do, he starts to narrate the events going on around him, in particular the shenanigans of a wild rabbit. As Jake narrates the actions of Mr. Bunny, Finn and Beemo listen in the comfort of their own home. Then somehow, Finn manages to turn Jake's narrations into a successful radio show. At first, it's just popular in the Candy Kingdom, but then the broadcast becomes popular throughout Ooh. Personally, I can relate. There's nothing I like better than some relaxing audio in the background. I've listened to radio dramas and audiobooks since I was a kid. Jake's radio show gave me that same kind of cozy feeling.
This particular program is presented through the courtesy of No One Incorporated, makers and distributors of nothing.
The story Jake relates about Mr. Bunny is relatively mundane, but it does have conflict which peaks in a crisis involving a threat to the bunny's rabbit hole, and then a resolution as the indomitable bunny overcomes his trials. Inspired by the bunny's spirit, Jake leaps out of his spot in the brick shack, crying out, among other things, "This bunny has the right attitude." Then he groans as, behind him, the shack falls down. Overall, not much happens in the episode, but that's okay. To get some idea of why the episode works, we can turn to The Emotional Craft of Fiction, in which Donald Maas writes, "Have you ever come across scenes that seem to have little plot that work anyway? Such scenes are infused with the point of view character's fundamental, underlying, and as yet unmet need. That need and its tug, twists, and turns are what is happening when plot is on hold." Jake, as anyone familiar with Adventure Time knows, is an extremely chill dog. He likes his tranquility. This has caused him difficulties, for example in the episode Ocarina when his son tried to force him to get a job by purchasing his house from his landlady, Marceline. In the face of such difficulties, Jake tends to just go with the flow. That brings us back to Marcus Aurelius, who I quoted at the beginning. Let's provide a bit more context to his quote. Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor who wrote about letting go of things outside of your control and accepting things as they are. If you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential. Because most of what we say and do is not essential, but we need to eliminate unnecessary assumptions as well, to eliminate the unnecessary actions that follow. It could be said that Jake's general laid-back attitude comes from his ability to ignore things that are unnecessary to his way of life. When it comes to eliminating unnecessary assumptions and actions, what could be a more extreme example than slotting yourself into a brick wall, doing no more than observing the events you see until some arbitrary event happens, in this case, the brick shack falling apart. We see Jake's desire for tranquility at its most naked when Mr. Bunny casually shrugs off the destruction of his home. Jake wants to know the rabbit's secret. How can the woodland critter show such blasé indifference towards the vicissitudes of life? Throughout the episode, we see all the characters take a moment to listen to Jake's radio show and relax. The hyper-intellectual and overachieving Princess Bubblegum, the obsessively individualistic Lemon Hope, even the Ice King, all unwind listening to Jake talk about that inconsequential bunny. I think Jake the Brick is so relaxing because the events it depicts are simple, often cozy, and altogether mundane. But, rather than thereby becoming an example of mundane and mediocre storytelling, the events are in support of a theme of gaining tranquility by doing less, and Jake's desire for even more tranquility creates an unmet need that can underlie the episode's meandering story. The truth is, all of us need to unwind at some point. This episode depicts the positive side of this. By simply being himself, Jake brightened the days of some of the more highly strung characters like Ice King and Princess Bubblegum, and he achieved this by doing less than he does in any other episode that centers around his character. That wraps up my thoughts about Jake the Brick. If you enjoyed the video, you can help the channel by liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great week and thank you for watching!